Hey there, I'm Sarah Zarella, a portrait and wedding photographer and your host for Wedding Secrets Unveiled. This is a podcast where we cut through the complexity of wedding planning, leaving you with everything you need to know directly from the industry experts. If you want to simplify your wedding planning while having fun, of course, you came to the right place. Join me while I guide you through your planning, starting from your engagement to your big day when you say, I do. After photographing for over 20 years, I am sharing with you tips and tricks to cut through the excess noise. Because I believe from the moment you said yes, your planning experience should be a magical time in your life. Here you'll find episodes that are fun, stress-free, and straight to the point with a fresh, honest take on the reality of what you really need to know about planning your perfect day. Let's dive in. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. I'm your host, Sarah Zarella, and today we have Kathy Vass. She is going to talk with us about officiants. She's going to go over what exactly a guest officiant is and the pros and the cons. She's going to talk a little bit about what you should consider when looking for officiant and what should be in your ceremony and what needs to be in your ceremony versus what you may want in your ceremony. So if you are in the point in your wedding planning where you are starting to think about your actual ceremony and your officiant, this is the episode for you. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast. So hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I am excited to have you on the show and give all your knowledge to our listeners.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to be here too.
But with that said, we have to let our listeners know who you are, who you serve, and what you do in your business.
My name is Katherine Vass. My company is Ever After Ceremonies, and I am a professional wedding officiant. So as a professional wedding officiant, I'm a justice of the peace in the state of Connecticut. I'm also an ordained minister with American Marriage Ministries. And I specialize in completely custom written love story ceremonies, which what that means is that when I meet with my couples, I really do a deep dive on them and their love story, not only how they met and all that good stuff in between, but like what makes them tick as a couple, where they're going from here post wedding day. So I'm very proud of the work that I do, and it's been very exciting to be doing this, what I feel is basically a calling, for the past 7 years. And I think the best review in the world is when I've done a ceremony and someone comes up after me and asks me like, oh, how long have you known the couple? Are you a family member? And I'm like, oh no, like they just hired me 6 months ago or a year ago. And that's the little like moment in my head where it's like, yeah, like mission accomplished, because we were able to get to know each other so well that I can represent their voice during the ceremony.
That's very nice. Not a lot of officiants take that angle, so it's a unique approach. So I think that's quite lovely and quite personal. Yes.
Thank you so much.
So I guess going off of that, why do ceremony offerings differ from one officiant to the other?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think that's the challenge for couples planning their wedding, right? Is that there are so many choices. And the short answer is that wedding officiants, secular wedding officiants who are not clergy, we are all our own businesses, which means everybody gets to decide what it is they want to offer. Some people, become officiants and they are fine with just doing like quick little town hall weddings, and that's it. Some, like me, want to do things that are much more involved, much more custom. I have colleagues that do the type of thing that they sort of write a handful, like a selection of pre-written scripts. And so when their couples plan with them, they're just like, here's the scripts and you get to pick which one you want. And all of those are all unique choices, right? As running your business. And each thing fits what each couple needs, So I have a quick funny story that a couple of years ago, I had a call with a groom and I walked him through what I do. And he said to me, we were really just looking more for a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am kind of ceremony. And I was like, okay, I might not be the person for you. And like, no judgment, right? That's why there's lots of options for different people. But like, that's why there's so many different types of people, so many different prices. I think people start shopping for officiants and go like, why are these people so expensive? Why this person's only $200? It's like, well, look carefully about what you're getting for what you're paying for.
That's a very good point too, because like you said, a lot of times, I mean, we do this for a living, right? So we see a lot of differences in our industry. But for someone who's doing this for the first and hopefully the only time, you don't understand until you start researching. So like you said, if there are couples out there that just literally, like, I mean, I hear it too as a photographer. They just say, listen, it's going to be a quick ceremony. Quick. So I need to know this because I need to make sure that we work the sides and the front of the aisle and everything relatively quick. But then there's a lot of couples who say to us, like, this is the important part of the day. This is why
absolutely.
We're all here. So, like you said, with your specialty, if someone's just really just looking for just to get up there, say a couple words, get married, move on, probably not going to be your jam. But if someone really wants to have a very intimate ceremony, having their officiant really understand them, and like you said, that was a lovely line, being the voice of the couple. This is obviously your marching territory, right? So there's that.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about what couples should know, what should be in a wedding ceremony? I mean, because like we talked a little bit about how you don't know until you start going into this, but what is supposed to be actually in a wedding ceremony?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Over the years of doing this, I've noticed that, first off, when it comes to all the different options they have, even in this year, we're in 2025 now, people look at a wedding and in their mind, watching a movie, they see a church or they see what they think is like a justice of the peace in a black robe in like a courthouse. And they don't realize that there's stuff in between. And so if they're not using a church and they have to invent their own ceremony with someone like me, they're like, what is in it? And I'm kind of surprised in the past couple of years how many couples, especially the younger couples, they haven't attended a lot of weddings together. So I kind of joke that they imagine in their mind this visual of walking down the aisle. Like I just got chills thinking about it, right? That's that big moment of walking down the aisle, seeing your person on the other end, the beginning. And then they imagine kissing and clapping and leaving and going to the reception. But like, as far as the guts of the ceremony that happens in between, we got no idea, So I would say that most of the couples will tell me when I have like a discovery call with them and say like, what's important to you in the ceremony, the bulk of them will say, I don't want it to be long and boring, and I don't want to be too short. And if they're looking for something that's more custom, they want it to be personal, have some personality. But in terms of anything else, they just need to be guided.
What are some other qualities that our couples should really be thinking about to making sure that they have a prepared officiant?
Well, for me, it's all about organization, good communication, good listening skills, for not only between the officiant themselves and the couple, but between the officiant and the rest of the wedding pros that the couple has hired. I think a wedding, and I don't know how you feel about this being a photographer, but like when you have a team of vendors that are all working together, it just creates so much more of a better experience. Everybody is looking after each other. Everybody knows what to expect. It goes so much smoother. I think out of all of those things, to me, the most important thing is listening to the couple and standing up for what they want, not trying to like sort of push your idea or agenda on them. If you tend to be a more spiritual person, then don't talk them in. You shouldn't be talking them into spirituality if that's not what they want. My philosophy that I tell my couples when I'm talking to them is that every bit of content in your ceremony should be in there on purpose and intentionally. It should be there to reflect and enhance and support who you guys are. So, for example, there's a tradition of adding readings to a ceremony because that's like a holdover from religious ceremonies or church ceremonies. And couples will say like, we need a reading. We don't know what to find. And I'm like, we don't need one. Like, you don't have to put it in there. If you're really struggling to add an element, then kick it out. It doesn't belong. It shouldn't be there. And there should be nothing in the ceremony that have the guests looking at you going, why are they doing this? Like, why are they doing this strange ritual? It has nothing to do with them. There should be nothing in the ceremony that makes the couple feel uncomfortable. Don't talk your couple into reading their own vows if they're introverted people. That I view myself as like, I tell them all the time, I'm here to give you all the options. I will tell you about rituals and readings and everything, and you will not hurt my feelings if you say, I don't want to do that. But I'll give you everything we got. And then in the end, let's put it together so it represents you. That's what's most important to me.
Have you seen anything that was quite unique that someone has added into their ceremony that you would like to see more of that?
That's a good question.
I know, put you in the spot there.
You did. Let's see. That was unique. I did have one recently, and it's escaping my mind at the moment. Some of my favorite rituals are things like a love letter box where they sort of make a time capsule and put their vows and a bottle of wine in there with the plan of opening it up on their anniversary. One of the most unique rituals I've had that's coming to mind right now was, there's a lot of unity blending ceremonies I'm sure you've seen, where like the old classic is like the sand ceremony where you're mixing sands, and I have my own feelings about that. And the long and the short of it is that like everything is appropriate to the right person. But this couple was really into beer and microbreweries. And so they did a black and tan ceremony in their ceremony where they actually had a light beer and a dark beer and they had gone to a glass blowing class where they made this pint glass. And so they had the one glass and the two beers, and they worked together to make this black and tan. And we wrote this ceremony custom. The language is very much about like the light and the dark side of life and how they have to exist together and, all these things. So that was just so cool. I love it when couples bring me new ideas and I go, all right, let's write a story that goes with this.
It's funny that you talk about the time capsule. So my husband and I got married 10 years ago, and we had one, and it had the bottle of wine. It had letters from some important people, so whether it be people that were in our unofficial bridal party, because we didn't have like an official bridal party, but just close friends or family members. And then it had a Twinkie, because my husband says that Twinkies don't expire, so it had that in there. So, but we were supposed to open it up on year 7, and we haven't. And I know exactly where it is. It's in the case and display in my bookshelf, and I look at it every year, and I say, maybe I'll open it up this year. I just can't bring myself to it because there's some letters in there for some people that have passed. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But it's a good and a bad thing. It's very special that we have that. It's just not.
It is.
Every year I say, this is going to be the year, and I can't get to myself to open it up, right? But
that's beautiful. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to steal that from you.
One day, and also too, we have 3 kids, so our life is very busy. So it's one of those things where I really want to be able to open it up when we just have time for ourselves. And we got married on Labor Day weekend. So myself being a wedding photographer, quite frankly, I don't have that time to take that day and just be with my husband and celebrate it together. My point is, one day I will, and he will, sit down and open that box. But it was really special for us, and I'm glad we did it. And so it was interesting that that's one of your favorite things that you see people do.
I think it is, because my husband and I also have that tradition. It's a holdover and a steal from church, because we did eventually get married in the church, but our priest was a little more laid back, and he had this idea that he said to us when we were planning our ceremony, he said, about a week before your ceremony, take yourselves out to dinner, to a nice dinner, and write each other a letter talking about like what's about to happen. You're about to start your lives together, and write each other another letter on your honeymoon, and then on your first anniversary, and, store them in a box. And he said, grow these letters every single year. So that's what we've done. We've been married almost 17 years. Every year on an anniversary, we write each other a letter, we put it in the box. And for the priest, his idea was that someday you bequeath this box to your children, and you, with the instructions that like when we're gone on our anniversary, open up a couple of bottles of wine and pass around these love letters and, you know, celebrate our love story. And so I've sort of stolen that technique. And when I explain it to my couples, I go, this is the language we're going to say in your ceremony, that what we're creating is this tradition, and that this will slowly collect the love story of your life, and that you can reflect on it, but you can also pass it down and have it be an heirloom. So I love that you do that too.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that. We could sit here all day long and talk about what we've seen and give our listeners some little
100%.
tips. I know, right? But I do want to give them one thing though. What are some things that really need to be in the ceremony? Like, what are the key traditions or that need to be there to make it a wedding?
Do you mean like legally, like what's required?
What's required? Yes.
Okay, so that's in different states. There are slightly different tweaks, but in general, what's basically required is your declaration of intent and your vows, which is basically a moment in which the officiant is stating to the couple, this is marriage. You want to do this? Yes. One more time, under clear mind and open heart. Yes, we want to do this. Getting that verbal assertion from them. And that you'll see that come in the form of saying to the couple, do you promise to love John for better or worse in sickness? And the I do moment, you know, like that's the assertion that we want to do this. And then it's just, you know, and of course the additional part to that is them getting to exchange their own personally worded vows as they want, but that's not necessary in order to legally marry someone. And then at the end, it's just pronouncing the couple married, signing their marriage license and returning it to the proper authority. So that's what's so great, is that there's very little that's actually required. You know, in some states, as I believe in Rhode Island, you require witnesses on your license. In Connecticut, we don't. So there's little slight differences like that. But in terms of content for the ceremony, like there's not a lot that's really required. So that means there's so much room for us to play.
And I'm glad we talked about that, because I think for people who are doing this, you know, obviously, not obvious. Most people have gone to a wedding, so you see these certain trends happening each time. But to understand that there really is only two things that really legally need to be in it. The rest is choice, right?
Right.
So, you know, sky's the limit over here of what you want to do and what's important to you. So what's going on right now in the trend that we're seeing about this friend officiant? And what do you think of this? And I have a feeling that this is, you have a lot of thoughts here. I have a lot of thoughts here. So maybe what we'll do is we'll come back from our break and talk a little bit about this. But before our break, just tell me a little bit about the trend that we're all seeing about the friend officiant.
Yeah, so the friend officiant, that, or as we're trying to coin, the guest officiant, is the person who the couple has asked a friend or a family member to officiate their wedding. And in a lot of states, including Connecticut, this is legal if that individual goes online and gets some sort of online ordainment. We've done a ton of research in order to understand what's going on. We see that the trend is literally increasing year after year. And what I've discovered is, I assumed that it was about budget, that they're like, oh, one less person I have to pay for. Surprisingly, it doesn't often have a lot to do with it. It's more about this couple wants a very specific person. They want to honor this person with this role. They want that honor to go beyond just being a reader or being in their wedding party. They also, like kind of how we touched on moments before, that like they want something more personal, and they think, oh, if I'm not going in the church, this is the only way I can get something personal. I heard so many times when I polled various brides in Facebook groups that we just don't think we'll get it something personal with a quote stranger. They use that word very often, that was the only way they could get what they wanted, by someone who knew them, a sister or brother or college roommate, someone who really knew them very well. So, you know, and in a couple of instances, I heard people say they just wanted that person in the picture with them. So when you picture, as a photographer, you picture that sort of wide shot of the ceremony with the couple in the triangle with the officiant and the wedding party flanking either side, they wanted this one person to be in that little triangle moment with them. So, you know, you can understand all of those reasons. As a pro, it's still tough to swallow because you're losing business to those people.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, I would love to share a lot of thoughts about this, good, bad, things to take in consideration, and a little bit more of the rising trend. So we'll be right back. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you like what you're hearing, I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. And don't forget, you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate if you left a fabulous review on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support. And now, let's get back to the episode. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. So before the break, we were kind of just going over a little bit about the difference and the offerings of an officiant at your wedding, and what are some things that you have to do at your wedding, and what are some things that you want to do. But now let's talk about the guest officiant. So give it to me. Thoughts. Let's go with this.
Well, initially, when this trend started, I was noticing a lot when I was doing wedding shows. I would be at a wedding show all day, and couples would come up to me, and I would, oh, have you booked your officiant? And you'd get a lot of, oh, we're using my friend, we're using my brother. And it was like a sinking feeling. And initially, I was trying to talk them out of it, where I would say to them things like, you know, do you understand you're kind of asking your friend to work your wedding for free? This is a really big responsibility. I would always ask them, you know, have they done this before? You know, if you're telling me, oh, my aunt's going to do it, I would like, oh, that's really nice of you to ask them to do it. Have they done this before? And if they said no, then I would sort of be a little bit concerned, you know, and I would ask them if they had any legal credentials to sign a marriage license, you know, and some of them, yeah, oh, my aunt is actually a pastor. Oh, okay. Well, now they've got all the stuff. But mostly what I ask them is like, why? Why do you want to go this route? Like, what is the reason why you're going this route versus another way? So that was some of the things that we touched on before about sometimes they just want that person, and there's nothing we can do to replace that. I can be the best person in the world, but I'm not that person. So I can't replace that.
I do feel that there's a lot of reasons of the why, but mostly, and this is a very, very big generalization, but mostly it is because they want to bring they're looking at their ceremony as a very special part of the day. Those are the couples that actually probably look at it in a way that they're not the wham, bam, thank you, ma'am ones. They're the ones that this is important. This is why we're here. And they feel that bringing someone who is important to them,
yes,
is something that will elevate their ceremony. Now, there's pros and cons, and I would like to really talk about that. I can talk about it on an end of being a photographer and what I see, and you can obviously talk about it from the intimacy of your actual business and what you do. But sure. I think kind of what you talked about earlier, where if that is where you want to go and that's the reason, exploring somebody like yourself who does make ceremonies personal and don't just read off of a piece of paper or script might be a happy medium, because there is some cons. And there's obviously the pros is you get someone that's special. They're not a stranger. They are probably one of the closest people to you. And I mean, that is a huge pro. I mean, but yeah. The cons, or the challenges or the concerns of having that be part of your wedding. I'm gonna speak on just one thing that Dan and I always see when we photograph weddings and there's a guest officiant. It's hard because yes, they might go online and they might get their certification, and yes, they might have prepared this amazing personalized ceremony, but there's actual fundamental things that are happening at your ceremony that they are actually orchestrating, and
100%,
and they are not doing those things. They don't understand to do them.
Yes.
Timing, when to tell people to rise and sit. So one of the main things that every time, and it's like almost a bet in my mind, I'm like, all right, over or under, or am I going to have to tell the people to sit, or are they going to? And I would say more than half the time I am, we all rise when the bride is walking down the aisle. However, we need to sit, right? It's a ceremony. It could be up to 30 minutes sometimes,
Yep.
So, and also too, you pay a lot of money for photographers, a lot of money for videographers. You want it to see the view or the vista or the water or your guests your wedding party. Anyway, my point is they never tell the guests to sit. And it's so awkward because half the people sit, half the people stand. And then I have to walk around and say, you can sit and
You're
motion.
all flapping like birds
everywhere. And I can go on with a list of those, but I wanted to, get your feedback on what are some of the concerns that you have when you see this or hear about this.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head that with all the photographers and other wedding professionals that I talked to, that was one of the biggest ones, is that now you guys have to take on this other role of sort of, telling them to sit or stand or what have you. I think the way it best sums up is that the responsibilities of being a wedding officiant are twofold. It's not just writing a ceremony or speaking a ceremony. It is the logistics behind the ceremony. It is the directing. It's the understanding everything that you just said. A lot of times I hear folks say, well, my friend is an excellent writer and she's a great speaker. You're like, okay, that's great. But if she has never actually directed this situation, like is she telling the DJ or the musicians, hey, I have to go and make this unplugged announcement first, then you start the music, or these are the last words I'm going to say before I pronounce the couple, then you start the recessional music. Like, they don't get any of that. And honestly, who would expect them to? But I think that's the core of it, right? Is that there's twofold to officiating. There's the actual content, and then there's also the logistics, the coordinating, directing.
And that's exactly what I'm here to kind of express too about this. I'm not trying to tell people not to have the guest officiant at all. I just I just want people to understand that there are two caps that you're wearing, and this goes also too for getting an officiant that is not seasoned too. There's that. So this is a twofold thing.
True.
It's not only the guest officiant. You have to also make sure you have an officiant that has done their fair share of ceremonies. If you're trying to elevate your ceremony to this level, obviously, some people just don't care. Okay, sure, fine. Then this is what you're going to be dealt with.
They don't value it.
They don't
Then
value
that's okay.
it. Right. But if you value it, which I think most people do, hence why they're having a guest officiant and someone that they love there. I just want, and I could, and someone who's listening might say, okay, well, give us those tips. It's not just that, because I can go through about 10 things of that you have to make sure you tell your guest officiant, but it's not just that. There are things that you may not even know or until it's going on, if that makes sense. And a seasoned officiant would understand how to deal with that. So, for example, I'll give you another one. Some moving when you had the first kiss, moving out of the way, or communicating with the videographer and the photographer about certain parts of the ceremony, or like you said, orchestrating with the music, orchestrating the band, the live musicians, the venue coordinator. Like, that's the other thing. Like, the venue coordinator, they're lining everybody up. They're syncing people as they walk down the aisle.
Yep.
There's just a lot of logistical things that, to me, sometimes is cringeworthy when it happens, because guests may not realize that it was the guest officiant that didn't orchestrate this or could have prevented it, but they do know when something happens. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That whole thing with the photographer sitting there and waving their hands like, sit down, that is like a disruption in your ceremony.
Yeah.
Or
like, what's up with that crazy lady and the flapping?
or like the bride holding the bouquet the entire time is like, A, it could be very uncomfortable for the bride because the bouquets are heavy, but B, it's just uncomfortable to watch her hold the bouquet and not hold the hand of her loved one, or then she has to kind of look around and toss her bouquet off to somebody who, maybe the maid of honor or somebody when it's time to exchange rings. But there's just these parts of the ceremony that just end up not being seamless when you have that guest officiant.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big ones is that this came up recently, is being able to troubleshoot and pivot in the moment. This happened to me last summer where you got a lot of outdoor ceremonies. What messes up with that? Weather. And how many times have you been, a ceremony's about to begin and everyone is like stalking the radar going, it looks like it's going to rain, but we can get it in on time. And you have those situations where the coordinator or planner, or even myself, because I'm a diva and I don't want to get wet, might tell the couple, the bride, like, we should think about moving the ceremony indoors, and they don't want to do it. And the only way that I solved a particular situation that happened was I said to the bride, if we can get this done in time so no one gets poured on, but we have to yank those 2 long readings that you wanted in the ceremony, is that okay? And she was fine with it. But somebody had to come up with that idea, right? Somebody had to troubleshoot in the moment and say, if you want this, here's an unexpected situation. This is how we're going to have it, how we're going to handle it.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to knock the trend. And if you are someone who had this, it doesn't mean that it wasn't beautifully executed.
No, not me either.
But I do want to also say that another thing that we see a lot of is, at the end of the day, you may not want to be intimately involved with the writing of your ceremony because you just have a lot of other stuff going on, or there's a surprise element, or there's a element that when you're intimately involved and know every word that's going to be spoken, it takes the excitement of your ceremony out, and you end up being, just know it all before you're getting down to your actual moment. But when you have a guest officiant, they might be a beautiful writer, or they might be somebody that's amazingly close to you, but they might not appropriately write something. And sometimes because there's a comfortability, they think that a certain joke or story or it might go over well, and it just doesn't. Or a lot of times they talk about themselves a lot more, like, because at the end of the day, this is your relationship with that person. It becomes a triangle versus a husband and wife, or a wife and a wife, or husband and husband. What I'm trying to say is there's a third element there. And so what happens is the guests start hearing stories about this person and how they know that person, or some of the stories that they've interacted, or their perspective.
It's one-sided.
It's one-sided, and it's just awkward. And the only way you can stop that is if you heard what that person wrote for you. And is that where you want to be? Do you want to micromanage your friend, and do you want to know what that person's going to be saying? So anyway, it's
interesting that you say that. If I can touch on that for a second. So it is my operation. The way I do my business is I custom write everything, and they do have approval. Some officiants don't do that. I do allow my couples to read everything that I'm going to write. And we still do get that special moment because they forget what I'm going to say. But I feel like as personal as I get with them, I don't want to cross a line to share something that I wasn't supposed to. And when I have trained these individuals as the guest officiant, I'll say the same thing. And I'll say to the couples, you need to approve it. Like, you don't want to take any chances that they share something, or they put an inside joke in there that really shouldn't be shared in front of 150 people. So I definitely think that, very specifically with a friend, you should know what the content is going to be.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't know what goes behind the scenes, but I've seen it enough where there is a friend and there's just something awkward there going on. And again, I don't know if the couple approved it or not, and maybe they did, because maybe they feel that it was going to go over well, and it just doesn't.
Yeah.
So, and another thing too is, just while we're at it, gum chewing. Like, you just take, if you want to put a mint in, that's fine, but you got to take that gum out. You got to take it out. Yeah.
I met up with a photographer at the wedding show that I did this past weekend. And like I said, I always will pounce on all of my vendor friends and be like, tell me your stories. And this was quite possibly the worst one. He witnessed a situation in which bride's friend was officiating, and she took a Xanax and a glass of champagne before the ceremony. And she was waving and wobbling around up there like one of those, puppets at the car wash. Just, she wasn't steady. And I was like, that is the worst I have ever heard. That's no drugs and booze. No gum. No drugs and booze before getting in front of people and marrying your friends. Everyone should be sober.
Fair. So, with that said, how are you and your fellow officiants coping with this rising? I can't even speak right now. Trend that we're having.
Well, a lot of us are choosing to answer this problem with a solution, which is just to coach these individuals. It's always been like my personal philosophy, my mode of operation. I never always meet a couple with service with solutions. If someone asks you a question, it never needs to be a flat no. If someone says, "Are you booked?" and I am, well, then I'm going to get you a list of people who are available so that they still feel served. It's the same philosophy. So now when I meet that bride or that couple who says we're going to use my friend or my brother, then I can immediately answer that like, oh, well, I'd love to sit with them and help them. And in fact, a colleague of mine, Shelly Armatino, who is also a professional wedding officiant here in Connecticut, we just recently started a business called Can't Wait to Officiate, where we're offering various types of coaching ways so that people can learn and prepare. So it's really that's the long and short of it, is like when your business changes and evolves, you got to adapt to the need. And that's what I would recommend that to any officiant. And I would recommend that to any couple, that like, if you run to use this person, get this person some help, like make it easier for them. And I think that directly reflects to some of the other concerns. And two of them being, somebody said this to me right recently, that what happens, the guest officiant backs out. It becomes like so much responsibility to do. They've got to Google all this stuff on their own. They don't know what they need or what they want, and they freak out. And then a month before, folks like me and my colleagues are getting last minute calls going, "Are you still available? My friend decided not to do it." And that's also happening. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, because the couple is not asking their person to do this honorable job. They're just emphatically telling them. They're going, "We're getting married and you're going to officiate." And it's like, "Oh, I am." And now they feel like they can't say no, but they really want to, So like with all those components happening at once, it's like kind of a mess, so people need help. We're here to help.
Well, what are some benefits of having the guest officiant, though? I mean, where would the pro be? I mean, I've said a couple pros myself, but where do you see that the pro would be?
I mean, I think it is a really beautiful honor to give to someone. I think, we've said a couple of times, but I really want to emphatically make it clear, like, I don't have anything against this. Like when I became ordained with American Marriage Ministries, one of their core tenets is that you believe everyone has the right to have their marriage solemnized and legalized, and everyone has the right to choose who does that for them. And right, freedom of choice. I would love you to choose me because I've decided to make this into a business, or one of my colleagues. But if you don't, that's okay too. So I think the benefit is that you do have this really wonderful experience, and that you also have the opportunity to connect with your friend, or in this couple, say, for example, you're more closer to the bride than the groom, or to the bride's partner. But through this experience of developing a ceremony and writing it, now maybe you get to know them on a deeper level. You get to like grow your relationship with them even closer than it was before, because you're getting to, ask them questions that you never got to ask them in order to prepare for this very unique experience. And I think from a practical standpoint, if you're not somebody who has done a lot of public speaking in the past or performing. I do know some officiants were like, "Oh, my aunt was in the theater, so she's perfect for this." Oh, great. But if you're someone who this is new to, there's so many people who now they sort of get the rush, right, of being up there and performing and speaking. And so now you've almost found this new passion. Maybe you're going to go out there and do some speaking or podcasting, or maybe you are going to start your own side gig as an officiate. I mean, we do talk about how that is the downside of training these folks. That we had a wonderful email from a student that worked with us last year saying that he had such a great experience. His couple loved his ceremony. And now I'm thinking of starting a side gig. And you're like, Great. But that is great, because in the end, being a wedding professional is a happy business, right? We could have chosen to do any job on earth. And while there are ups and downs and stresses to our lives, right? Photographing weddings, officiating weddings, it's a happy business.
All right. Well, it's that time for our wrap-up question. What are some key points that couples should be asking officiants, making sure that they're inquiring with a professional company to ensure that their wedding day is absolutely perfect?
Well, I think the first thing they should do is take a moment to think to themselves what kind of ceremony they want, because that's going to help them identify which officiant that they want to look into and what person that they want to interview. They should also identify their budget as well, as you would with any wedding vendor, so they can go into interviewing those folks with their eyes open, understanding what it is they get. If they're deciding that maybe they want to investigate this idea of choosing a friend or a family member, I still think it's not a bad idea to interview a pro anyway, just so you can sort of apples to apples compare both of those things. And I would also say that there is a million options for every category. So in order to help you narrow that down, rely on referrals. If you've booked your wedding and you love your planner or you love your photographer, like ask your photographer, hey, I'm looking for an officiant. Do you have a great referral for me? Because that's just going to take a lot of the work off your plate already. Like those folks are going to want to only refer people who they know and love that are going to do a good job, So, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, is that make sure you're getting someone, whoever that is, a pro or a friend, that matches your style, what you want, how you want to feel, how you want the guests to feel. I mean, the biggest thing I say a lot of times is, and I'd love to sum it up on this, is this sounds like a little bit of a counterintuitive thought, but your wedding ceremony is not for you. I mean, it is in the sense that you're getting married, but you know your story, and so does everybody else. What it's there for is for your guests, these wonderful people, these friends and family that you love, to witness this thing happen to you. And so for order that to be really successful, it has to be engaging. Everybody has to be in it with you. And if that's the experience that you want to have, then you need to know that the person at the helm, your officiant, is going to accomplish that for you.
I want to thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of Wedding Secrets Unveiled. You helped our listeners become one step closer to a journey that is stress-free. Can you tell everybody where they could find you?
Sure. So my name of my business is Ever After Ceremonies. So you can find me on everafterceremonies.com. I'm on Instagram at EA Ceremonies. And if you're looking for someone to help your friend or family member with coaching, you can find us on Instagram at I Can't Wait to Officiate. That's the number 2, and I Can't Wait to Officiate. And on our website at can'twaittoofficiate.com.
For our listeners also, I'll have Kathy's information on our website and our episode show notes, which you can find on our blog and our website page at sarahzarella.com/podcast. Well, thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Wedding Secrets Unveiled. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you something. I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. We love photographing while having fun, of course. Check out our podcast page on our website for our show notes, along with upcoming episodes with your local wedding experts. Listen in as we help you plan your epic event. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. I would so appreciate if you left a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support, and let us know what you think. If you know any wedding experts that would like to be a guest, we have a link directly on our website where they can let us know. Thank you for listening.